This fall, we'll be walking through the main stories of the book of Genesis, tracking what Sunday school will be learning too. So next week we'll be dealing with the flood story. It's chapter 8 if you want to read ahead and see what's coming. But I found that I read these stories at the beginning of Genesis differently now that I'm the father of young children. Children are always asking these great questions. They're just this fountain of questions. So for instance, the other evening, the young one in our house looks out the window and says, "Look, the moon! It's stuck up there," she says. "Why is it stuck up there?" "I don't know." And so I put together some sort of feeble response about the moon orbiting around the earth. It means nothing to her. But I imagine these sorts of questions and the very human responses of parents being behind these stories. So I imagine a 5-year-old boy crying to his mother because his 16-year-old brother David just left the house to get married. And he says to his mother, "Mom, why did David have to leave? Is it because he doesn't want to play with me anymore?" And the mom says, "Oh, no, son. When God created the world, God created Adam first. And Adam was all by himself, and Adam was so lonely. And so God wanted a partner for Adam. God didn't want Adam to be lonely. So God started creating animals, a cow, a goat, a lion, an eagle. But no animal was a suitable partner for Adam. And so then God created Eve out of a rib of Adam. And Adam said, 'This is who I've been looking for.' And Adam and Eve were together forever, and they weren't lonely, and they started a family." You see, David had to go off because he was getting lonely. He needs to start his own family now. It's not your fault, son. I imagine a 7-year-old girl crying outside the house, and she's scared. Her mom is inside, screaming in labor pains. And she says to her dad, "Dad, why does it hurt so badly to why is Mom screaming so much?" And the dad says, "Well, when Adam and Eve were in the garden, Eve took a bite of an apple that she wasn't supposed to eat. And so God said to her, 'Eve, because you took a bite of this apple, I'm going to make it hurt really, really bad when you have babies for you and for every woman forever and ever.'" And the girl starts crying even more. And the father walks off. See, the fathers have never been as good with the comforting messages as the mothers. You just have a sense there's a father behind here somewhere. I share this because when I read these stories, I don't read them as history, but at the same time, I believe they're true. I don't go back to these stories of Genesis to find the truth about how the beginning of the world started. I go back to Genesis to hear truth about how the world is, about how things are, and these stories deliver plenty on that score. Genesis 3 is a fun story. Eve is framed. Adam's kind of a doofus. God's a little paranoid. And there's a lot of truth about the human condition. So as soon as God gets the scrubs off from the first surgery in the history of humankind, taking the rib out of Adam, Adam and Eve stand up. And God gives them the old thumbs up. And then God exits the scene. And as soon as God is gone, the serpent slithers in and says to Eve, "Did God tell you not to eat any of the fruit in this garden? Because that's just the sort of thing that God would do." And Eve says, No, we can eat all sorts of fruit around here." The serpent says, "Really? You can eat the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil?" Eve says, "Well, no, we can't eat the fruit from that tree, but we can eat..." "Oh, no. If you can't eat this fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, then you aren't eating fruit. All that other stuff is just like the fruit that's trucked in from California. You bite into it, there's no taste, no nutrition, nothing. Barely edible. This is fruit. This is fruit. It's so delicious. It's beautiful. And you bite into it, it's just flavor like you've never imagined. And it'll make you smart. Right now, you're just a bumbling idiot. You couldn't tell me 2 + 2. But if you eat this apple, you'll be wise like God." God's insecure, afraid, doesn't want you to eat this apple, doesn't want you to be like God. I don't know why this is. Why wouldn't any God want someone to eat the tasty fruit that makes them smart? I think you should eat this apple, Eve. Well, now Eve desires this apple. It's like that slice of chocolate cake that she left in the kitchen and promised to leave for Adam when he gets home from the meeting. But she just can't stay away from it. She keeps going out in the kitchen and looking at it and justifying to herself, just taking a little slice off. No one would ever know. She's looking at this apple. Why wouldn't just a little wisdom hurt anybody? Certainly I could take one bite of apple and God wouldn't be upset about it. I'm sure it won't be a problem. She eats the apple. If we've been wondering where our boy Adam's been through all of this, we're told he's standing right there the whole time. Too spineless to say anything as the snake is convincing Eve to do what they're not supposed to do. Either that or he just doesn't have any thoughts in his head, like some Homer Simpson just standing there with his mouth open and drool coming out of his mouth. Eve offers him the apple. Here, Adam, you should eat this apple. Okay, and he eats the apple. And then it's like they see themselves in a mirror for the first time, realize, oh, my body doesn't look like those people from Hollywood that I see in the magazines, and they're ashamed. And then God starts walking into the garden. I imagine God here as like a mother with adult children waiting for news of grandbabies. God's created this beautiful garden, the most romantic garden you could ever imagine. Placed in the garden a man and a woman without any clothes, with no shame about their bodies, just hoping they'll do what comes naturally and start this creation rolling, start some procreation. So God's walking through the garden listening for news. Hello? Anybody have anything to tell me? And can't find anybody anywhere. Where are you? And Adam finally says, I'm afraid. I'm hiding because I'm naked. Whoa, wait. I put you in here without any shame, without any... Did you eat that apple? And Adam says, well, Eve made me do it. And then he says, well, the snake made me do it. Well, that's a true story, isn't it? In Genesis 3, we have these two clear boundaries between being human and the divine. One boundary is no knowledge, and then the knowledge of good and evil. That's divine territory. The other boundary is between mortality and immortality. Immortality is divine territory. God kicks Adam and Eve out of the garden before they can eat from the tree of life and cross this boundary into immortality. So God says, remember you are dust, and to dust you will return. That's our human lot. That's our condition. But Adam and Eve cross over this other boundary into the knowledge of good and evil. They share this with God, and we share it with God too. And God's really nervous about this, which is a puzzle to us, because we see knowledge as good. Knowledge is just a good. Education is foundational. What could be the problem here? It's as if God remembers what we often forget, that our knowledge should be pursued with some sense of humility and care. Humility because we'll never know the whole story. We're never going to know everything. We'll just know in part because we're human beings. And care because the more we learn about the world, we find the more complex it is. And the deeper and more thorny the ethical dilemmas become. Think nuclear weapons and nuclear technology, or human cloning. God is hesitant to allow these brand new human beings to step into this divine realm. God's nervous about this because there will be beauty and gift, but there will also be complexity and heartbreak and brokenness for sure.